My cousin slept with my wife, so I got him to confess while he was drunk and then shared the video with my family. I, 34M, have been married to Sarah, 32F, for 8 years. We met during our junior year of college when we were both taking Professor Mitchell's advanced economics class. I still remember the first time I saw her. She was arguing passionately about market regulations, and I was completely mesmerized. We started dating after I finally worked up the courage to ask her out at a campus coffee shop. 3 years of dating, a beautiful wedding in the Berkshires, and what I thought was a perfect marriage followed. No kids yet, but we were planning to start trying this year. Well, that's not happening anymore. Some background about our family dynamic. My cousin Jake, 30M, has always been the golden boy of our extended family. While I worked my way up in corporate finance, taking the slow but steady route, Jake jumped into real estate right after college and seemed to strike gold immediately. He's the type who always needs to have the newest everything: Tesla Model S, upgraded every 2 years, designer clothes, luxury condo downtown. Our Aunt Martha practically worships the ground he walks on, constantly bringing up his latest achievements at family gatherings. Despite his show-off tendencies, Jake and I were actually pretty close growing up. Our moms are sisters, and they made sure we spent every holiday and summer vacation together. We were more like brothers than cousins. He was the best man at my wedding, for God's sake. His speech made everyone cry. He talked about how I was his role model, how Sarah was the sister he never had, how perfect we were together. The irony of those words haunts me now. Sarah and Jake always got along well, maybe too well, in retrospect. She would invite him over for dinner at least once a month, saying it wasn't good for him to eat takeout all the time. They had this whole routine: she would cook, he would bring some ridiculously expensive wine, and they'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing. I usually joined them but sometimes had to work late. I actually thanked him once for keeping her company when I couldn't be there. Imagine that. Looking back, there were so many signs I ignored. The way Sarah would light up when her phone buzzed with his texts. How she always seemed to know about things happening in his life before he told the family. The lingering hugs that lasted a beat too long. The inside jokes I wasn't part of. But you never want to believe your wife and your cousin could do that to you, right? These are supposed to be the two people you trust most in the world. The changes in Sarah started subtly. First, it was the gym membership in January. New year, new me, she said. Reasonable enough. But then she started going at weird times, 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. When I suggested we could go together after work, she always had an excuse. Too crowded. Different workout styles. Needed her me time. Then came the new wardrobe. Sarah had always dressed well but conservatively. She works as a high school guidance counselor, after all. Suddenly she was buying designer clothes, getting regular manicures, and wearing makeup even on weekends. When I complimented her new look, she said she was finally investing in self-care. I actually felt guilty for not noticing she was unhappy with her appearance before. The phone thing was what really should have tipped me off. Sarah used to be the type to leave her phone anywhere, often forgetting it at home. Now it was glued to her hand, always face down. She changed her password, saying her school implemented new privacy policies. She started taking calls in another room, claiming they were sensitive student issues. I respected her privacy because that's what you do in a trusting marriage, right? The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I had run out of printer ink, and we had a big client presentation the next day. Sarah was at one of her late-night gym sessions, so I decided to use her laptop to print the documents. She had forgotten to log out of her Gmail, and there it was, an email confirmation for a room at the Marriott downtown, dated 3 weeks ago. The hotel was just 20 minutes from our house, in Jake's neighborhood. My hands were shaking as I clicked on her email history. Multiple hotel bookings over the past few months. Always the same hotel, always on days when she told me she was working late or having dinner with her girlfriends. I felt sick to my stomach. 8 years of marriage, and I was finding out about my wife's infidelity through a hotel booking confirmation. I could have confronted her right then. Part of me wanted to wait up for her, show her the emails, and demand answers. But another part of me, the part that still hoped this was all a horrible misunderstanding, needed more proof. Maybe she was planning a surprise party? Maybe she needed a quiet place to grade papers or counsel students? My brain was working overtime trying to explain away the obvious. That's when I remembered something that would change everything. At our last family dinner, Jake had been showing off his new Ring doorbell camera system. He'd spent 20 minutes demonstrating how he could check who was at his door from anywhere, even letting us all download the app and see the live feed. He had cameras covering his front door, garage, and backyard. More importantly, the system stored footage for up to 60 days. I had a plan, but I needed to be smart about it. Jake has always been a heavy drinker, especially during sporting events. He turns into an emotional mess after about 6 beers, starting to reminisce about childhood and apologize for old slights. The Super Bowl was coming up, and I knew he'd be hosting a watch party. It was perfect. I volunteered to be the designated driver for our friend group, claiming my doctor had put me on some new anxiety medication that couldn't mix with alcohol. Nobody questioned it, they were just happy to have a free ride home. Sarah opted to stay home, saying she had a migraine. Sure. The party went exactly as expected. Jake's place was packed with about 15 people, all focused on the game and the elaborate spread of food he'd ordered. By halftime, most people were pretty buzzed. By the fourth quarter, Jake was completely plastered, slurring his words and getting emotional about every play. After the game ended and most people had left, I stayed behind to help clean up. That's when I started recording on my phone. The conversation continues with much more detail about Jake's drunken confession, including specific dates and events they'd lied about to cover their meetings. He reveals how it started. Sarah had indeed come over to drop off Christmas decorations, but they'd ended up talking for hours about their supposedly unhappy lives. One thing led to another, and they justified it as a one-time mistake. But then it kept happening. The next day was a blur of productivity. I'd taken a personal day from work, and I had a list. 8 a.m., met with divorce lawyer Diana Thompson, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through something similar. She was ruthless and efficient, exactly what I needed. 9:30 a.m., bank visit to separate our accounts and freeze joint credit cards. Sarah had her own career and money, I wasn't trying to leave her destitute, just protect myself. 11 a.m., real estate agent walkthrough of our house. Market was hot, and we had good equity. 1 p.m., meeting with my therapist. I'd started seeing him a month ago when my anxiety started. Funny how your body knows something's wrong before your mind admits it. 2:30 p.m., storage unit rental. Started moving important documents and irreplaceable items. 4 p.m., apartment viewing and lease signing. Found a place in a different part of town, month-to-month lease. The whole time, Sarah kept texting about dinner plans and grocery shopping, playing the role of devoted wife. Jake posted on Instagram about a big real estate deal he just closed. Their ability to just carry on like nothing was wrong made me even more certain about my plan. The story continues with an extremely detailed account of the family dinner revelation, including specific reactions from each family member, the exact contents of the Ring camera footage, and the immediate aftermath. The fallout was more dramatic than I'd anticipated. Here's a breakdown. Sarah moved in with her sister temporarily. Lost several close friends who sided with me. Had to take a leave of absence from work when parents started complaining about her moral character as a guidance counselor. Tried therapy to win me back but gave up after I refused to attend couples counseling. Eventually took a job in another state. Jake lost his job when it came out he'd been using client properties for his meetups. Got dumped by his girlfriend of 2 years who had no idea she was dating a cheater. Aunt Martha had a complete breakdown and needed therapy. Uncle Bob removed him from his will. Tried to start over in real estate in another city but his reputation followed him. Last I heard, he's working as a car salesman in Arizona. Family split into 2 camps, team you should have handled it privately and team they deserved what they got. Holiday celebrations are now held separately. Cousin Amy, Jake's sister, named her new baby after me, which was a pretty clear statement. My parents became closer than ever, terrified that their 35-year marriage could have ended the same way. Started a family therapy tradition to deal with trust issues. Me. Sold the house for 25% above asking, thank you, housing bubble, traveled through Europe for 3 months. Started a podcast about surviving infidelity, mostly as therapy, got promoted at work, turns out channeling anger into productivity works, dating again, very cautiously. In a much better place mentally. Edit, holy shit, this blew up overnight. RIP my inbox. Thanks for all the awards and support. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I have copies of everything backed up in multiple places, including a safety deposit box. 2. No, I don't feel bad about how I did it. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. 3. For those asking about the Ring footage, yes, it's legal. The cameras face public areas. 4. Sarah has tried to reach out through mutual friends, claiming she made a mistake and wants to work things out. That's gonna be a hard no. 5. Yes, I'm in therapy. Yes, it helps. 6. No, I won't share the video footage. That's just asking for legal trouble. 7. To the people asking for my podcast info, sorry, trying to stay anonymous here. Edit 2, thanks for all the awards. Never thought my personal tragedy would get so much Reddit gold. And to the people DMing me asking if I'm okay, I'm getting there. Having proof that I wasn't crazy helps more than you know. Edit 3, since this post went viral, both Sarah and Jake have tried to contact me through new social media accounts. Blocked immediately. Some people never learn. Final update, it's been 6 months since D-Day, Divorce Day. Life is different but better. The podcast has a small but loyal following. Started seeing someone new who knows the whole story and respects my trust issues. Jake apparently got fired from his car sales job too. Sarah's dating some guy from her new job. I honestly don't care anymore. The best revenge is living well, right? Update, 1 year later. A lot of you asked for an update to my viral post from last year, so here it is. Get comfortable, because a lot has happened. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my original post. Your comments and messages helped me through some really dark times. Several of you suggested I write a book, well, more on that later. Let's break down everything that's happened in the past year. Remember how I mentioned Sarah wasn't contesting the divorce? That changed. About 2 months after my original post, she hired this hotshot lawyer who tried to claim I had emotionally damaged her by exposing the affair publicly. They demanded half of my recent promotion bonus and tried to argue that her reputation damage deserved compensation. My lawyer, Diana, still an absolute shark, literally laughed during mediation. She presented printed copies of Sarah's hotel receipts, time-stamped ring footage, and bank statements showing Sarah had been spending our joint money on designer clothes for her meetups with Jake. The new lawyer dropped the case so fast it probably gave him whiplash. Sarah ended up having to pay my legal fees. Remember my Aunt Martha, Jake's mom? She went through an interesting transformation. After 6 months of therapy, she reached out to me with a 10-page handwritten letter apologizing for enabling Jake's narcissistic behavior throughout his life. We had coffee last month, and she admitted she'd ignored red flags about Jake's character for years because she wanted to believe her son was perfect. Uncle Bob, Jake's dad, filed for divorce from Aunt Martha, but they're now in couples counseling. Turns out Jake's behavior made them both reevaluate everything. They're actually doing better than ever, weirdly enough. Cousin Amy, Jake's sister, had her baby, and yes, she really did name him after me. Little James is adorable, and being his godfather has been a bright spot in all this mess. Amy cut all contact with Jake and has become one of my closest confidants. The family is slowly healing. Holiday celebrations are still separate, but there's talk of reuniting for Thanksgiving this year. My mom's starting a new tradition of honesty circles at family gatherings, which is exactly as awkward as it sounds, but somehow it's helping. My podcast about surviving infidelity, which several of you somehow found, yes, that's me, now has over 100,000 monthly listeners. I've interviewed therapists, divorce lawyers, and other survivors. It's become weirdly therapeutic. I'm not getting rich from it, but it covers my therapy bills. The company I work for promoted me again. Turns out channeling all your anger and hurt into work performance really impresses the higher-ups. I'm now heading the entire financial analysis department. Sarah's update. She ended up moving to Oregon after losing her guidance counselor job. The school didn't fire her, but enough parents complained about her moral character that she resigned. Last I heard through mutual friends, she's working at a private school and dating some tech guy. She still occasionally tries to reach out through random mutual friends with the "I've changed" speech. My response remains the same: block and delete. She did send me one email that got through my filters. She wrote that watching the video of her walking into Jake's house over and over at that family dinner made her realize how many people she'd hurt. Too little, too late, but at least she's self-aware now. Oh boy, this is where it gets interesting. Remember how I mentioned he was selling cars in Arizona? Well, he got fired from that too. Apparently, he hit on his manager's wife at a company picnic. Classic Jake. He tried to start a YouTube channel about recovering from public shame but deleted it after the comments section filled with people who'd heard about our story. He's now supposedly working on a tell-all book about how he's the real victim in all this. Good luck with that, buddy. His Tesla got repossessed, and he's driving a 2010 Camry now. Sometimes karma is just chef's kiss. Remember how I mentioned I'd started dating again? Well, her name is Michelle, and she's actually a widow who listened to my podcast. We met for coffee to talk about dealing with loss, different types, but still loss, and something just clicked. She knows the whole story, has met my family, and understands why I sometimes need extra reassurance. She's also big on transparency. We both share locations on our phones, not because we have to, but because we both understand how important trust is. The book thing? Yeah, that's happening. A publisher reached out after my story got shared on some major websites. I'm working with a ghostwriter to tell the whole story, including parts I couldn't share here. It's tentatively titled Ring Around the Truth, a story of betrayal, technology, and revenge. Cheesy, I know, but the publisher loves it. Still going strong with therapy, but now it's more about building a healthy future than processing the past. My therapist says I'm a textbook case of post-traumatic growth. Basically, sometimes terrible things make you stronger. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I definitely know myself better now. A year ago, I thought my life was over. My wife and cousin had betrayed me, my family was in shambles, and I was living in a sterile apartment eating takeout every night. Now? I own a condo downtown, thanks, book advance, have a successful career and side gig, and am in a healthy relationship with someone who values honesty above all else. Sometimes the universe has a weird way of pushing you where you need to go. For those currently going through something similar, it gets better. Not immediately, and not without work, but it gets better. Edit, wow, this blew up even bigger than the original. Thanks for all the awards. Edit 2, yes, the book will mention Reddit and how this community helped me. No, I won't be using anyone's usernames without permission. Edit 3, to the people asking if Michelle is worried about being the next Sarah, she actually laughed at this question. Direct quote, if he was going to cheat, he wouldn't have turned his last cheating experience into a literal book deal. Thanks you all for the support.